Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel, Renaissance Man Media. This is a channel where I intend to cover basically all sorts of media and review them and rave about them and talk about them and critique them and all that kind of stuff. So today what I want to do is showcase my Blu Ray collection. Roughly I have about 450 Blu-rays on here, and then I have some DVDs and some TV shows. I'd like to get to all those if you guys don't mind. This is going to be a longer video, so just sit tight and hope you enjoy. And I mean, the greatest thing I could do in this video is show you a movie that you've never seen and recommend it to you, or remind you of a movie that maybe you saw once or you heard about and you're like, I forgot about that, but I want to watch it. I do have a few movies on here that I either haven't finished or haven't seen at all. It's not going to be very many, but there's a few. I do own some more movies in my closet that basically I've decided either I haven't seen them at all and don't have a whole lot of interest, or I straight up watched it, didn't like it, and plan on selling it. Okay. So my movies are in chronological order. So up top here, we have the oldest stuff. And then down here at the bottom, we have the newest stuff. So let's get to it. Okay, so Swiss Family Robinson. Love this movie. This is a movie I grew up with. Always related to Francis. But it's an underrated Disney movie that, anyway, I had to sign up for the Disney Movie Club just to get this Blu-ray because I couldn't find it anywhere. So, but yeah, this is a great movie. Love the family dynamic. Love all the lessons that you learn from it. It's great. Okay. All right. This is gonna be a pattern, but Dr. No. So I've done this review on the channel already, but this is may not be top 5, but it's close. But it's definitely a top 10 Bond for me. This was the original. Favorite line from it is when he tells the guy that's coming in to assassinate him in his room. He says, "This is a Smith & Wesson, and you've had your 6," and then he kills him. Great. Okay. From Russia with Love. I used to think this one was slightly better than Dr. No, but I don't know. I think I might have to reverse it. I think I like Dr. No a little bit more. From Russia with Love has some like stagnant parts where basically not a whole lot's going on. So, yeah, but From Russia with Love, still a great Bond movie. Maybe top 10. I don't know. That'd be another list I'd have to do. By the way, I forgot. Well, this ain't gonna do me much good. There's a guy's YouTube channel. If you just type in like James Bond movie channel, you'd find him. He's a brown-haired guy from Britain. I can't think of his name for the life of me right now, but if you love Bond, go to his channel because like that's all he posts about is Bond. So he's good. But maybe one day I'll do a ranking of James Bond films. I do need to watch them all. Sword in the Stone. This is a movie that I rewatched with my buddy Jesse on this channel. Does not hold up like I thought it would. I keep this movie basically for my daughter and for any other kids, so they can kind of see, hey, you grew up on this, like, well, what's it about? I think kids can still enjoy it, but for an adult, it's just it's too dumb. I mean, to be honest, like, it can't hold an adult's attention just because it's too much for kids. Goldfinger, this is a top 5 Bond movie. It's just as good as everyone says it is. It's great, honestly. Goldfinger himself is a great villain. The plot of the movie is great, and it makes sense, and I mean, I don't want to ruin it for you, so if you don't want to ruin, like, click away or whatever, or skip ahead 10 seconds. The plot of the movie that's so cool with Goldfinger is that he decides that he's going to, instead of steal gold, he's going to basically take Fort Knox and I think he's going to, like, blow it up or do something with chemicals where basically the gold disintegrates and basically that gold is worth nothing, which makes his gold worth more, which is such a cool thing. Operation Grand Slam. Okay. So, Fistful of Dollars, I'll be honest, I've only seen this one once, and then the next one is a few dollars more. I've only seen these once each. It was a few years ago. They're fine. I need to rewatch them probably, but they didn't stick out too much to me. I'm not anti-Western. There's some people that really don't like Westerns. I love a good Western, but I don't just accept anything, and I'm not really a Western genre fan. But if the script's right, I'm really down for it. And I do own some good Westerns on here. You Only Live Twice. This is like one of my personal favorite Bond movies. Not saying it's like the greatest, but he goes to Japan. Really think it's cool. Like the plot. I don't know if it introduces Blofeld officially. I think this is the first time you see Blofeld like on screen, like showing his face. So in this one, he's played by the guy that plays Dr. Loomis in the Halloween movies. But we'll get to that. Yeah, good one. Jungle Book, this is I do need to rewatch this, but I grew up watching Jungle Book, so I would just like to see from an adult perspective like how it is, but I can't imagine I dislike it considering the fact that the music's great, and who doesn't love Baloo? All right. Okay, here we go. Good, Bad, and the Ugly. So I grew up watching this one. Love the music, love everything about this one. It may be a little long, but I mean, this is an epic Western, in my opinion. It's a great one. So, like I said, I need to rewatch the prequels for this one. Not prequels, I mean, they came out beforehand, but I need to rewatch the previous movies in the series and just make sure that I either like them, or if I don't, I'll just sell them. The one big thing I don't want, I mean, I used to try to collect, like, even if a movie I didn't care for, if it was part of a series, I'd be like, no, I still want it. And then I thought about it, I'm like, why would I want to have to look at a movie that I actively don't like? Like, I'd be like, no. So, I'm trying to think of a good example. One for instance is like Rush Hour 3. Like, I love the first two, but the third one, once I saw it, I was like, I'm not going to buy this just because it's the third one. I was like, no, I can't stand this. There's other examples, but we'll get to that. True Grit. So I saw the 2010 version first with my dad in theaters, and then he told me about basically the original, the John Wayne version, and I watched this a couple years later, and I was like, damn, this is really good, and I see why everybody like talks about this one and why it got a remake in the first place. So this is the only John Wayne movie I own, and that's kind of sad. And if anyone has any recommendations for more John Wayne movies, my grandpa was a big John Wayne fan, like huge. My dad likes John Wayne a lot, but he's mentioned a few to me. But anyway, I need to get around to like watching them. That's another thing. I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch movies, I feel like, in the last couple of years. But I'd like to do more of that with the channel. If I can turn this into kind of more of a full-time thing, I'd love to do movie reviews. So if you guys want to see that, please let me know. But I'd love to do movie reviews. Or if there's a movie you want me to review and talk about, a movie that you love that no one ever posts about, I'd love to do that. Honor Majesty's Secret Service. So this is the first one that I'll tell you I haven't finished. I watched like the first half and then didn't get through. I liked what I saw, and I've heard this is one of the best ones of James Bond, but I need to finish it. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, one of my favorites. This is a movie I grew up watching. Love the values that you learn in this about, like, you know, what I took away from Gene Wilder when he passed away, like just basing it off his performance as Willy Wonka, is to always make sure that you keep that, not innocence, but like that as a kid you used your imagination and you wanted to like go after happiness and anything that made you happy, that's what you wanted. And like, I feel like as adults, we kind of lose track of that. People just get to working and working and working. And then like 30 years of your life is gone and you're like, well, what have I done? What did I enjoy? So like, I don't know. Stay a kid at heart. I mean, don't get me wrong, still take care of the things you have to take care of, your responsibilities, but don't forget to live a little, have fun. Diamonds Are Forever. So this is one that I feel like I finished, but obviously it wasn't that memorable. If I can't even remember if I finished the movie. I need to rewatch this one. I've heard it wasn't the greatest, but I love Bond, so I do want to finish this. I know this was Connery's last movie with MGM, and then he did, I think it's Never Say Never Again. I tried watching that movie. I got through like 5 minutes, and I was like, I can't do this because the action choreography was so bad. Godfather. Okay, so I didn't watch this until 2012, so I was 20 at that time. So refreshing, so awesome. It's one of, like, I always say that when you watch a movie or listen to a song or a show or whatever, like when you see something that's been out for a long time and you see it for the first time or hear it for the first time, it's like finding like buried treasure, because you're like, oh crap, like this has been around this whole time and I just didn't realize it, or it hadn't come across to me. But people had hyped up The Godfather for so long, like me growing up, and I was like, okay, I'll get around to it. Obviously, growing up as a kid, I'm not going to watch Godfather. I'm not Italian, by the way, so this wasn't like a staple. So when I finally got around to watching, I was like, this not only lived up to my expectations, it exceeded my expectations, because I'm normally the guy that's expecting a letdown. But no, this was great. I don't own the second one. I rewatched both of these like last year, the first one and the second one. And the second one, it's fine, but I don't understand. If you guys want to explain to me, I don't understand why the second one is viewed in just as high regard as the first one. To me, the first one is head and shoulders better. Never seen a third one, but I heard basically don't waste my time. But I'd be willing to give it a shot if it came across my radar. Live and Let Die. So this was one of the first Bond movies that I saw, aside from the Pierce Brosnan ones, because they're what I grew up watching. But I think this used to be on Spike TV all the time, and that's why I would watch it. I love the plot of this movie. I love Jane Seymour in this movie. Pretty sure that's her name. I just want to double check, make sure I got the right girl. Yeah, Jane Seymour. Probably my favorite Bond girl, at least the girl that I find the most attractive. I don't know. There's been a lot of them, but she's up there. But yeah, this was Roger Moore's first, and in my opinion, this is his best one, just because of how serious he took the role in this one. He was still himself, but in the later ones, I noticed they're like, well, you can get wackier and you can do more like fun stuff or whatever. And in this one, I felt like he was trying to stay with what Sean Connery had done while still being himself. All right, next one, Robin Hood. I also grew up with this one. I haven't watched this in a couple years, but I remember still liking it, and I can't imagine this doesn't hold up. I mean, like I said, stuff like this that I grew up on, worst case scenario, I can still show it to my kid or, anybody else's kid. I got 2 nephews now, so they can watch it, but I don't know. Like, I need to rewatch this and just make sure it holds up. Okay, so this is similar to The Godfather, The Sting. So this is a movie that when I watched for the first time, this was, like I said, once again, like 2012, I was blown away by how good this was. I mean, this movie delivers on everything that I was looking for. And people were like, oh, you got to watch The Sting. I was like, okay, highly recommend this movie. Paul Newman and, why can't I think of his name? Robert Redford, great in this movie. It's kind of crazy because I think age difference-wise, I think they were only like 15 years apart. But one, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. One plays the mentor and the other plays the kid. But, all right. The Man with the Golden Gun, I'll be honest, I've tried to get through this movie like 2 or 3 times, and I can't get through it. I know this isn't the greatest one, but I still want to go back and rewatch it before I make like a final assessment on it. It's Roger Moore Bond, which means that like it's hit or miss with them. Like one will be really good, and then the next one you watch will be like meh. So I think this one's a meh, but I need to rewatch it to make a final assessment. All right, next we got Jaws. Jaws is one that I'd seen clips of, but I didn't sit down and watch it until a few years ago. And it was pretty good. I really like the parts where they're actually sitting down and talking about the shark and like realistically what it could be, where it came from, how many there could be, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the stuff on the boat. But yeah, Jaws, Spielberg's first, I don't know if it was his first movie, but it's his first big one. But this movie, there's a lot of lessons you can learn as a guy. I just went to film school earlier this summer, so I'd still like to continue that, but I want to start trying to make my own movies. It's never too late. But Jaws is something you can learn a lot from as an aspiring director. Outlaw Josie Wales. I'll be honest, I need to rewatch this, and that's not saying I don't remember it. I remember it being great. My dad had me watch this, and he was like, you want to watch some good Westerns? Like, here you go. And I loved it. My favorite line, I think, from this movie is when there's a bounty hunter that's coming after Josie Wales because he's an outlaw, obviously. And the guy is like, what does he say? He's like, well, I'm come to collect or whatever. And he's like, what? And he's like, no, just go home. And he's like, well, man's got to make a living somehow. And Josie Wales says, dying ain't much of a living, boy. And then I think the guy tries, and then Josie Wales gets him. But I need to rewatch this just because it's been like over 10 years since I've watched it. Like I said, time goes by pretty fast. Okay, Rocky. Gotta have Rocky. Rocky's great. As much as like everyone, and me included, loves to say like Rocky 4 might be the best because like the music and the villain, all that kind of stuff, I still think the original Rocky's the greatest because you just can't beat the original underdog story. I mean, I love, one of my favorite scenes is just like, when Apollo's talking about, like, we need to find somebody, and he's like the Italian stallion. And then when that guy is trying to sell Rocky on it, and he was like, do you believe America's the land of opportunity? Apollo Creed does. And it's just like, Rocky tells Adrian, he's like, I just want to be able to go the distance with them so people like know that I'm not a bum. That was his goal. He didn't care if he won. He just wanted to go the distance. So cool. All right. The Spy Who Loved Me. So I heard this one was really good. So I watched this one last year for the first time. I liked it. Still would like to rewatch it again just to kind of like make sure that I have everything kind of memorized. I liked it. I don't think I loved it as much as a lot of people, but I liked it. Jaws is in it, so that's good. Okay. Animal House. This is another one that I remember really liking. My brother had this movie, and he was like, you should watch it, and I watched it. I remember thinking it was hilarious, or pretty funny, but I need to rewatch it because it's been over 10 years. It's been a long time. Halloween. My favorite horror movie. I don't own, like, the only horror movies I own are pretty much Halloween and maybe a few other exceptions. But for some reason, the Halloween movies I can watch, and even though, yes, they do, like, kind of scare me, they don't, like, haunt my dreams forever or anything like that because they're not too grotesque. It's more just this masked man that's basically just, like, pure evil and just, like, a kind of a zombie in a way. But there's just kind of this whole mystery with Michael about like what's going on there. But I don't know. I really love the original Halloween is just great for me. The soundtrack, Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, Dr. Loomis, everything. Just gotta have the original Halloween. Okay, Rocky 2. I have not seen Rocky 2 as many times as I've seen Rocky 1, but I still remember it, and Rocky 2 is also great. The fact that they did a sequel and they just ran back the fight, and it happens to be it's a pretty great movie. Escape from Alcatraz. This is a movie I remember watching over at my grandpa's, and I think this was on cable, and for the longest time I was like, I have to remember, I need to rewatch Escape from Alcatraz. I watched it again a couple years back. I still liked it, and I need to rewatch it again, but I don't think this movie's anything fantastic, but it's just like classic Eastwood. He's a prisoner, just him escaping from Alcatraz. Pretty cool. I don't know. I dig the plot. Moonraker. I watched this one for the first time last year. I take that back. I watched this movie way back when I was I think I was an 8-year-old kid and I watched this movie. And anyway, I finally rewatched it. It was good. Like, I liked it. But once again, this is not one of my favorite Bond movies. Probably doesn't even make my top 10. But it's fine. Okay. Classic. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I grew up watching the Indiana Jones trilogy. I had the VHSs. So everyone knows Raiders of the Lost Ark. Great. Probably the epitome of an adventure movie. Action adventure. For Your Eyes Only, I don't think I've seen this one. I think I need to watch this. I don't think I either have watched this or I only watched it once. Not entirely sure. Yeah, I need to watch this. So this is on the list. So you guys can make fun of me for that. Halloween 2. Not like the Rob Zombie Halloween 2 or anything like that. The Halloween 2 from 1981. So this one is very underrated because I noticed a lot of Halloween fans, including the people that made the newest Halloween, they acted like this movie didn't exist because I guess it has some tie where they make the claim that Laurie Strode is Michael's sister or whatever. Here's my thing. Who cares? I don't really care about that. This movie is just a great horror movie because it's set in a hospital. And I'll tell you right now, there's very few things that are scarier than like Michael Myers coming around a hospital at night. It's pretty good. Like I said, I don't think anything goes over the line where I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's good. Okay. The Road Warrior. So I've only seen this movie once. And like I said, this was about 10 years ago, I feel like, or maybe not that long ago. Maybe it was like 7. I think I watched this right around when the new Mad Max came out, Fury Road. But this is my favorite Mad Max. I've seen the original Mad Max, it is called Mad Max, I believe, right? Yeah. To be honest, I didn't really care for it. I thought it was really boring. Just not a whole lot happens. So, Road Warrior is like, they take that plot of Australia, like barren times where people are fighting over gasoline and stuff like that, and they take it up to another level. And Road Warrior is great. And Tom Hardy's a good actor, but he's not Mel Gibson, and you can't really duplicate it. Plus, Mel Gibson, I try to remember his backstory. I think he's born in Australia but raised in America or vice versa. But he's got an Aussie accent to him, I believe. But he's been in the U.S. for so long, he's kind of lost it. But Rocky 3, this is probably the Rocky that I've seen the least. I like it when I watch it. It's sad when Mickey dies, but Rocky 3, it's good. But to me, it's probably my least favorite. Well, I don't know, Rocky 5. Okay, we got Blade Runner. So Blade Runner, when I first saw this, like, this blew me away because I was like, holy crap, like, this movie came out in 82, and this is kind of the plot of Terminator before Terminator. Not exactly the same, but the idea of like machines disguised as humans. This was before Terminator. So anyone that wants to say James Cameron's this visionary or whatever, he is, but just remember that Ridley Scott beat him to it with this movie. The visuals in this movie are great, but I will say this movie is pretty slow and kind of boring. I don't think I own Blade Runner 2049. I love that director, Denis Villeneuve, which I know he pronounces something different, but I am American. I love the visuals of that movie, and I'd like to rewatch that one. The Blade Runner movies to me are just kind of hollow, and maybe that's the point of them, is that you're not supposed to feel this huge connection, but it's a lot of visual, like looking at stuff that looks beautiful and deciphering what the director wants you to like figure out. So I don't know. Blade Runner, I still keep it just because it's such a cool concept and Harrison Ford's great and all that kind of stuff. First Blood. This is a movie I didn't see for the first time until a couple years ago. And I mean, I'll be honest. So I'm a veteran. And when I saw the finale of this movie, I was like, holy crap. Like, damn. And don't get me wrong. I couldn't do the stuff that Rambo did in this movie. But the part that got me, man, is when he says, like, I used to be in charge of, $1 million equipment. I used to know how to drive a tank, a gunship, whatever. He's like, now I can't even hold a job parking effing cars. Yeah. I mean, when his general, whatever, comes in, he's like, the war is over, Johnny. He's like, nothing is over. Nothing. He's like, for you, maybe. He's like, but not for me. Because basically they program it into you to be this certain thing, and then you get back and you were super important, and then you come back and then it's like, well, you're basically nothing. It's like, go work a regular job. And I'll be honest, that's a real struggle. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only veteran that came in contact with that basically you just have you can't accept like working some regular job anymore. Like you have to feel like you're doing something that's like worthy of like your purpose. It just, I don't know. Okay, so that's it for that section. Next section, give me 1 second, because these are packed in a little tight. Okay, so we got War Games. This is a movie I didn't see until a couple years ago. Was very happy I did. Was very pleased with this movie. I love Matthew Broderick. And then when I finally watched this, like, this was an overall just like solid movie that I feel like was witty, but didn't do anything that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like, this is a great time at the movies. I feel like War Games. And it teaches you a valuable lesson about war and the cost of death and humanity and what that's worth, all that kind of stuff. Octopussy, the title's funny, haha. I've never actually watched this movie. I think I used to see clips of it on Spike when they would run the James Bond movies. So I need to watch this. I think I own, like, I did a recording before this, so I don't remember if I put it on this one or the last one, but I own every Bond movie, I believe, except for Thunderball. Thunderball I rewatched on this channel with my buddy Jesse, and aside from like the jetpack scene and like a few other scenes that are inside, the underwater sequences are so boring, so bad, so you can't figure out what's going on. I was like, and that's most of the movie, and I was like, nope, I don't ever want to sit through that again. And I love Bond, and I was willing to give it a pass, but I was like, I can't do it. Which, it made sense because when they did Never Say Never Again with Connery, when it wasn't with MGM and he did it with some other studio, that was them remaking Thunderball. And I was like, now it makes sense, because I was like, even though that movie probably sucks too, and I only got through 5 minutes, I was like, it totally makes sense why someone would want to remake Thunderball, because Thunderball really wasn't good. Okay, Scarface, another one that I hadn't seen until a few years ago, and once I saw it, I was like, wow. Like, I don't like it as much as, and I'm not trying to throw all the Italian actor movies together, like the mob movies, but like, I like Godfather more because I think it's just an overall more solid movie. But Scarface, I was expecting to be like, this is overhyped, whatever. And then when I saw it, I was like, that the journey of a guy that comes from, I think he comes from Cuba, basically, he's a nothing, and then he rises all the way up, is pretty cool. But it's like, what does that cost? And I know people say Scarface is a remake of an original. Okay, I'm not watching 1930s movies. I'm just being honest with you. The oldest movie I probably would enjoy watching, I don't even enjoy Wizard of Oz, but like It's a Wonderful Life, and I think that was 40s, but that'd probably be the oldest movie I would enjoy watching. All right. Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. People don't give this movie its credit, but I can enjoy this movie. I'm not saying it's as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I can sit back and enjoy this movie just as much. Love Short Round. He was great. Yeah, I don't know. Love that movie. Karate Kid, classic. I haven't seen this as much as, like, let's say the Indiana Jones movies. Like, it's not that kind of a classic for me where I know it so well. But Karate Kid's good. I do want to rewatch it. I didn't get into Cobra Kai, but I've heard nothing but good things, so maybe one day I'll get into that. By the way, I don't own the remake with Will Smith's son. I watched it once. I think I did. It's just, why do I... For me, a remake has to give you something new, and I love Jackie Chan. Love Jackie Chan. But a remake has to give me something new for me to really enjoy it, and I'm like, that didn't give me anything new. It just made me want to watch the old one. The Terminator. So most people will say Terminator 2 is better than Terminator 1, and it is, but Terminator 1 I feel like doesn't give its credit because it is kind of a horror movie. It's like, what if a cyborg was coming after you and its only mission was to kill you and it was indestructible, basically. Arnold does such a great job in this one. So yeah, James Cameron, James Cameron did this one, and then he did the second one. I love this. I mean, Terminator, when I first started getting into like collecting movies, like in the like 2007, 2008, whatever. This is one of the first ones I picked up, and I was so happy I did. Very good. Still is a movie. I tell people all the time, I ask people, what's scarier, living in like the world of Terminator or living in the world of the Matrix? And some people are like, Matrix, and I'm like, no, because Matrix, it's already happened. So it's like, if I wake up and I'm like, this is already what's happening, I'm like, I feel like I could get adjusted to it. Plus, being in the Matrix would be kind of cool to be able to do cool stuff. But I was like, Terminator, it's like inevitable. And they're coming for you. And that's like the creepy thing. All right, A View to a Kill. I don't think I actually ever finished this movie. I think I tried starting it. I know this is Roger Moore's last one. I've heard this movie's kind of hokey, but it's got why can't I think of the guy's name? Christopher Walken. Yeah, it's got Christopher Walken in it. That's worth a shot for me. I need to watch it. Plus, it has one of the better Bond songs, one of the intro songs. Rocky IV, classic. If I'm not counting the first Rocky, this is probably the best one. The whole battle of U.S. versus Russia, Apollo Creed's death, going over to Russia to train, the soundtrack, it's great. I hope we're doing good on time. We're at 26 minutes. I don't know. I might try to speed this up, but hope you guys are enjoying. I do want to say a little bit about each movie. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a classic for me. I've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off a zillion times, but I love it. I love when has Rooney come to his door or whatever, and he's just like, I'm sorry, due to my condition, I can't come to the door. I fear I might like hurt myself and fall on the stairs. It's like, have a nice day. Love it. Love his keyboard that he had. Great. Aliens. So I don't own the original Alien. Not that I don't consider it like a good movie, but like the original Alien to me, the concept of aliens is so freaky to me because anything of humans transforming into other things or have something inside them like an alien creeps me the hell out. That like gives me nightmares. I don't want to watch stuff like that. So the first Alien, while I respected it, that's a straight up horror movie. And I told you, other than Halloween, I really don't want to watch horror movies. So for me, when I saw Aliens, and I've only seen it once, but I need to rewatch it, this was like cool. More like Starship Troopers. I'm like, it's a little darker than that, but good guys fighting aliens. It's not as much a horror movie. It's more of like an action movie that's set in kind of like a horror space of you're still out in space with these aliens, but liked it. Sigourney Weaver, I think, is better in this one. But anyway, I haven't seen the other Alien movies, to be honest. I remember seeing the one, maybe it's Requiem, or I don't know. It's the one where basically they make like a human-alien hybrid. I don't know. It has like Winona Ryder in it. That one used to be on FX, and I watched a little bit of it. It just freaked me out. The Untouchables. I've only seen this movie once, but I need to rewatch it. I remember it was pretty good. Kevin Costner, Sean Connery, and Robert De Niro. Great cast. It was a pretty good movie. Predator. You still can't get better than this one. I know I've heard people say that like there's some new, like, I don't know if it's Netflix or Apple or something, but there's some new version of Predator where like it's a Native American girl from 100 years ago. I've heard that's good. Probably need to watch it, but still for me, Arnold, Predator, never fails. I do need to rewatch it because it's been quite a while since I've seen this, but I remember loving it. Spaceballs. Once again, this is one of my early collections in this collection. That's kind of redundant, but Spaceballs is a movie I grew up watching. I don't know, like I could recite many lines. One of my favorites is when Darth Helmet's like, now Lone Star, now you see that evil will always triumph because good is dumb. Yeah. Love Spaceballs. Funny, she doesn't look Jewish. Full Metal Jacket. I didn't see this one until after I was in the military, and when I watched it, I was like, damn. Even though I wasn't a Marine, but I was Air Force, and people can make their jokes about that, but I deployed, and there's a lot of Marines that didn't, so I'm just like, just shut the hell up. But Full Metal Jacket is basically the basic the scenes that happen in basic training. That's why I love this movie, and they're great. And as soon as they leave basic and they go to Vietnam, I kind of check out of this movie, but the basic stuff is so good, I feel like I have to own it. Because Arlie Ermy, he's now passed away, but that dude was a former drill instructor that they had. He was like the advisor of the film, and then eventually they're like, man, you're so good at this, why don't you just play the part? And he was perfect. Okay, so The Living Daylights, I haven't seen this one, I'll get to it here in a second, but the Timothy Dalton Bonds I have not watched. I've heard they're darker, and at the time people didn't like it because they were used to Roger Moore, and then now they've kind of gained a bit of a following where there's a cult of people that really like them. So maybe I'll do that like today, or I don't know, maybe sometime. I do want to go and watch these because I'm not opposed to Timothy Dalton. I think he like fits like the criteria of what I need for a Bond. But um, I don't know. I mean, he'd probably be my least fit. Well, George Lazenby or him would be my least favorite, just because they had the least amount of movies and they're not as memorable. Um, Princess Bride. I watched this for the first time in like middle school. I had a teacher like bring this in on a day that I guess we had little to do, so I watched this. Looking for my water bottle. Princess Bride's good, guys. If you ever want to, I'm not gonna say trick, but if you ever want to entice a girl to come over and instead of Netflix and chill to watch a movie, recommend Princess Bride. Most girls would be like, I would love to watch Princess Bride with you. So it's a good movie. It's funny. I love Inigo Montoya. He's awesome, but this is not one of my favorite movies just because it's a little too, I don't know what you want to call like fantasy. It's a little too kid for me or a little too lighthearted. I don't know. Although I will say the dude that's the main guy that's also in Robin Hood and a few other things, would have liked to see him in more movies, or if he is, I just haven't seen him. Wall Street, this is a movie I've had in the collection for quite a long time. Great movie, and it's just crazy how even in the 80s, and granted I wasn't born when this movie came out, but how stocks were still like such a thing and how important all that stuff was. But Michael Douglas does a great job in this movie. Charlie Sheen really does a great job as well. So Wall Street, if you haven't seen this, really watch it. It's great. Classic, Die Hard. I mean, you could talk about Bruce Willis, but honestly, for me, what makes this movie great is I'm blanking at the names. Oh, the guy. Why can't I think of his name? This is killing me. Alan Rickman. Yeah, but I'm ashamed of myself. Alan Rickman as the villain of this movie, Hans Gruber. Great. So great. I love the original Die Hard, but for me, honestly, it's between Die Hard 1 and 3. I love them both. 1's probably a little better, but I love 3 just as much. Okay. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Personally, for me, this is my favorite Indiana Jones. I'm really excited for this year, this summer, we're getting a new Indiana Jones. But Last Crusade, just, I love the plot of this one. Going after the Holy Grail to me is just like, that's the epitome of what you could go after. And Sean Connery does a great job in this, and the whole cast does a great job, and the plot's great, and the villain's great, and all that stuff. So, love that. I mentioned earlier that I haven't seen the Timothy Dalton one, so License to Kill, haven't seen this, and I need to watch it. Tremors. So, I've said this before when I like do my rating system of movies. Let me see if I can remember. It's been a while since I've had to do it. You top rank, you got Masterpiece. Lowest rank, you have a coaster, which is literally the movie is better served as a coaster for your drink than watching it. And then I have, if I remember correctly, I had like a do not watch movie, which is, or don't pay for this movie, which is basically if you can get away with seeing it for free, give it a shot. Maybe you might like it, but don't pay for it. And then I have a $5 bin, which is basically if you found this in the $5 bin at Walmart, you're like, yeah, I'll give that a shot. Sure, it might be worth $5. And then I have, what I say, Buy It, Own It, I think is the next one. Yeah, where I strongly recommend for you to buy it. And then lastly, I think is Masterpiece, which is, oh no, sorry, above $5 bin is Guilty Pleasure, and then Buy It, Own It, and then Masterpiece. So I used to say Tremors is a guilty pleasure, but honestly, it's probably a little better than that because I've ran into more and more people that love this movie. Tremors is just a good time at the movies. I don't know what else to say. It's like, what's the plot? But it's aliens that like basically dig underground and they'll get you if you're on the ground. It's kind of a crazy plot, but you know what? It works. Kevin Bacon, it works. Love Tremors. I haven't seen the sequels, but I haven't heard I'm missing much, really. But if they are good, let me know. Glory. So for the longest time, this was my favorite movie. I first saw this in 8th grade social studies. Loved it. And then I remember, like, one of the first times I was old enough when I was 16 to, like, buy movies. Like, I had a little bit of money because I was working a job. I was working at Sonic. I went with my buddy at the time. He was my best friend in high school. We went to Circuit City, which they're not really around anymore, I don't think. They went out of business. They were going out of business then, but they had this sale of, like, oh, like, movies were super cheap. So we just stocked up, and we're like, yep, buying that, buying that. And as a person that was just starting to build their collection, oh, it's perfect. Obviously now, all those DVDs I've gotten rid of, and now I got the Blu-rays. But Glory, if you've never seen Glory, great movie. Denzel, Matthew Broderick, Morgan Freeman, great. It's about the first black men in this country, like the slaves that basically they got free and then they were like serving in the military, and that was the first time that had happened for the U.S. And like this movie doesn't shy away from race, but it doesn't. I don't feel like it's constantly like dividing races. It's like, okay, yes, that happened, but it has like, I feel like it has a good and realistic moral, like, and a good ending. Okay, so I am ashamed to say that I hadn't seen this movie up until about 3 years ago. Hunt for Red October. I had a teacher at the maintenance school that I went to, and he was like, "You've never seen Hunt for Red October?" I was like, "No." He was like, "Oh my gosh, you would love it." And I saw it, and boy, was he right. This is one of, if not my favorite movie of all time. This is either 1A or 1B. I've been obsessed with this movie ever since I saw it a few years ago, and I'm like, this is just great. And I will still, and Harrison Ford's my favorite actor, but I will still say that Alec Baldwin is a better James. Is it James Ryan? Why can't I think of the name? Tom Clancy. But Jack Ryan. Sorry. I swear to God, I'm a movie fan. It's just I'm trying to do a lot right now. I still think he does a better Jack Ryan because he's more believable to me as an analyst and not like some action star. Harrison Ford, I feel like he comes across as an action star, but Alec Baldwin, I feel like it's more believable. Okay, Die Hard 2. I still think this is a really solid movie. I've only seen it once. I need to rewatch it, but this is really solid. It's not as good as the first and the third one, but it's really good. Goodfellas, a movie I've only seen once, but I remember being like, wow, like this movie, just like Godfather, holds up to the expectations that I've heard about, but I really do need to rewatch this. Sad, Ray Liotta passed away, like I think in the last year. He was great in this movie, and I haven't seen a ton of stuff that he's in, but boy, is he great in this movie. Home Alone, the movie I've probably grown up with the most. This is a Christmas staple every year, even still. Me and my family will sit down and we'll have Home Alone in the background as we open presents and spend time together, all that kind of stuff. I have so many memories of this movie, but part of the reason why this movie is important to me is because the mom in this movie, her face looks a lot like my mom. Granted, my mom doesn't have red hair; she has brown hair. But when at the end of the movie, where she's like, "Kevin, I'm so sorry," like that scene when he's looking for his mom, he comes downstairs. That scene occasionally could still make me tear up a little bit. Rocky 5. I don't think this movie's as bad as everyone makes it out to be, but I understand. Like, I wasn't alive when this movie came out. This is from 1990. I understand why when this movie came out, everybody was like disappointed. I get it, but this is still a movie I can enjoy because Tommy Gunn was a real boxer, and my dad, Tommy Morrison, he saw Tommy Morrison box. And my dad was a big boxing fan, and yeah, I don't know. Just knowing that history, I think Tommy Morrison was from Kansas City, so just kind of cool. Which, if anyone doesn't know, that's where I live. And that's where I'm from. Okay, so next we got Dances with Wolves. I've seen this movie, I think, twice, but because it is so long, the runtime is 234 minutes. That's almost 4 hours. It's ridiculous. But, that being said, it's worth a watch. It's just, I think maybe at the most, watch it every 5 years to kind of remind yourself of it. But Dances with Wolves is great. And the people that say Avatar is basically Dancing with Wolves, but like on another planet, they're right. But still good. Speaking of Avatar, I just saw the second one like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. It's basically just the first one all over again, just in water. And to be honest, I'm not saying it's an abomination of a movie. It's fine. But anytime you could watch the second one, I'd be like, well, why don't I just watch the first one? I don't think it adds anything new, to be honest, at all. Silence of the Lambs is a movie I didn't see up until 2012. So like I said, the fact that I made it until like 20 before seeing this movie is like kind of crazy. This movie is so great, and I was blown away because I always heard Silence of the Lambs is freaky. You're not gonna like it. It's too creepy. And then I watched it. And I was like, people made this movie out like Hannibal Lecter was just like eating everybody the whole movie, and that's not what it is at all. And it's great, and I think that's why it works so well is because it diverts your expectations, I feel like. As someone that, I wasn't around when trailers for this movie was coming out. I wasn't even born yet. Okay. T2, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Probably the best sci-fi action movie ever. I mean, to be honest, ever. I mean, you could say Aliens, but honestly, to me, Terminator 2 is better than Aliens. But turning Arnold into a good guy, such a smart move, such a cool move. I mean, probably my favorite line from this movie that just like is stuff that you're like, damn, that's really true, or that really hits hard, is when young John Connor is watching two little kids like fight over like a toy or whatever, and they're like, no, I got you, it's mine, whatever. And like him and Arnold are just watching, and he's like, we're not gonna make it, are we? people, I mean. And Arnold's like, it's in your nature to destroy yourselves. He's like, yeah, real drag, huh? I mean, it's kind of true. Like humans, like we just kind of do that. Someone's always got to have this or have more resources or be fighting over this. And I guess it's kind of a survival instinct because if we don't fight for things, we lose them or someone can take it from us. But it is kind of a drag that it's like with everything that we have, world peace really isn't ever going to be a thing. Okay, Beauty and the Beast. I said Swiss Family Robinson's my favorite Disney movie. It might be Beauty and the Beast and then Swiss Family Robinson. Swiss Family Robinson is definitely my favorite live action, but Beauty and the Beast, I grew up watching this movie. My dad actually, I mean, funny story. I was scared of the Beast as like a 2 or 3 year old, and I'd be like, "Daddy, the Beast," and he'd be like, "No, I got you." But Belle was that was the girl I wanted to marry because she was smart, but she wasn't like, I don't know. I mean, I have brown hair, so I wanted a girl with brown hair, but I don't know, I just thought she was the prettiest. But Beauty and the Beast, it's a great story. It's about, a guy that's kind of having to learn that, hey, I probably have been a little grumpy and a little mean to people, and I probably need to be nicer and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, she is learning to look past physical appearances to look at what's inside somebody and seeing if they could change. So it's a great movie. Hook, I'll be honest, this is probably more of a guilty pleasure, but this is a movie I grew up on, and I'm all about Rufio. Rufio's awesome. And Robin Williams, now that he's passed away, this is one of actually his better performances because it's really cool how he goes from this businessman that's like, I don't have time for my family, I don't have time, I'm on the cell phone and all this kind of stuff, and a civilized guy, whatever, to going into this where he can become like a hero and he learns to like have, kind of how I was talking about Willy Wonka, have that inner kid and find that again. Really cool. So even though Hook's not a great movie, it's not a great movie, there's aspects of it that are pretty cool. So that's why I'm like, Steven Spielberg didn't fail with that movie. It just wasn't, it's not as good as his other ones. Patriot Games. It's a good movie. I like it, but I don't think this movie is as good as people make it out to be. I'm passionate about like the IRA as far as like learning about it and all that kind of stuff because I'm Irish on both sides. Not saying I'd ever join the IRA, but I just think it's a cool concept for a movie. And anyway, Harrison Ford's great as always. It's just not one of my favorite Harrison Ford movies, to be honest. It's good, but it's not one of my favorites. Unforgiven, I barely remember this. I watched this movie like 10 years ago once, and I don't even know if I finished it. I need to rewatch it. Everyone's told me how great this is. I need to rewatch it. Lastly, on this shelf, we got Reservoir Dogs. This is a movie I've also only seen once. I remember loving the concept of like the guys going by like color names, so like Mr. Blue, Mr. Pink, Mr. Brown, all that kind of stuff. I need to rewatch this. But I remember liking it a lot. It's not my favorite Tarantino movie. It probably doesn't even make like my top 4 or 5. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. All right, let's keep going. Uno momento. Hope you guys are enjoying this, by the way. I mean, this does take a lot of work, but I'm trying to do this in one cut. Home Alone 2, underrated. It's not as good as the first one, but it's pretty damn good. And as soon as Macaulay Culkin went out, the movies just weren't the same. All right, Aladdin, another one I grew up on, classic. Robin Williams is the genie. He was so good at voice acting that they said, we're going to have you record your lines first and then we'll animate. Normally for voice acting with cartoons, they'll animate and then they want you to do the voice acting to the animation. But with Robin, they're like, nope, that's not going to happen because he can come up with such cool stuff. That movie would not be the same without, like, where he's like, I can't believe it, I'm losing to a rug. Like, all that stuff, just improv, basically. A Few Good Men, I didn't see this until I was like 20, and I was really happy I did. I mean, this movie, the acting is superb in it. Tom Cruise is pretty good. Demi Moore is pretty good. But Jack Nicholson, just the best. I mean, I love everything that he talks about in this movie where he's saying, like, like, you think I'm the bad guy or whatever. He's like, that's fine. You can curse the Marines, whatever. He's like, but deep down inside, like, you need me on that wall. I mean, it's very I think it's very true because a lot of people that are in privileged positions in this country don't realize what people are doing around the world to make sure that our country is safe and making sure that terrorism or people that are planning on doing America harm aren't around to do it or not able to do it. So even though, he shouldn't have ordered the code red and all that kind of stuff, still doesn't take away from the fact that it's like that was his job, was to like make sure that he has tough men that can keep the country safe. Cliffhanger. I bought this on Blu Ray not too long ago, like within the last year or two, and I need to rewatch it because I remember as a kid watching this at my grandpa's and loving it. So I need to rewatch this. But this is like 90s guilty pleasure action movie. John Lithgow's in it, and he's the villain. And if I remember, he was pretty good. Jurassic Park, classic, seen it a zillion times. My favorite line from the movie is probably when Dr. Malcolm is like, like Jeff Goldblum, when he's like, the old man's like, our scientists have done things that no one ever, no one could ever imagine. He's like, yeah, but your scientists were so caught up with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And it's like, that's so true with so many things in this country, in this world, and everything. The Firm, another great movie that I hadn't seen until a few years ago. I watched it on Amazon Prime, and boy, is this movie great, and no one talks about it. And it's honestly one of Tom Cruise's best. It's a great, great movie. Watch it. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. Okay, so do you remember a few minutes ago when I said Hunt for Red October might be my favorite movie? Well, here's the one that's competing with it, The Fugitive. I saw this movie for the first time, I think around like 2006, 2007. Loved it ever since. Don't get me wrong, I love Indiana Jones and love Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, but this is probably my favorite Harrison Ford movie. It's ironic that my two favorite movies, one of them has Harrison Ford in it, and then the other one is Hunt for Red October, where Jack Ryan's in it, and then like Harrison Ford takes over as Jack Ryan in the next movie in the series. That's kind of funny. But The Fugitive delivers everything that I want in a movie. It makes you think. It's got a cool thriller plot. It's still action, has good acting. I'll be honest though, like Harrison Ford alone would make this a good movie, but Tommy Lee Jones is what makes it a great movie. Tommy Lee Jones' performance in the movie, I think he won an Oscar for it, and he deserved it. He was great. Tombstone. Talk about westerns that you love. This is probably my favorite western. I grew up watching this with my dad. Loved it. Could cite all the Doc Holliday lines. Love it. I mean, what more is there to say? I mean, I'll be your Huckleberry. I mean, that's honestly not even my favorite Doc Holliday line. I mean, I don't know. I love when like he comes in after that Billy Bob Thornton gets like slapped around, then he comes back with a shotgun and basically Doc Holliday stops them, and then he's like, oh, and then they start talking. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you were there. He's like, well, leave the gun. He's like, but you may go now. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. When I was growing up, when I was 3 years old, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll get around to doing that. But the two guys that were the funniest at that time were Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy. And I might be missing one other person, but those two were like the guys that were on top. And that actually reminds me, I don't have Liar Liar. And Liar Liar is a movie I remember growing up and watching. I need to rewatch it because I've heard that like a lot of people say like it's actually really good. And like I said, I haven't seen it since I was like maybe like 7. But Pet Detective, pretty funny. It's not one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies, but still pretty good. Lucy. Okay. Speed. This is a movie that I hadn't seen up until like 5 years ago. Watched it for the first time because everyone talked about Speed. It's just as good as people say it is. Perfect action movie. Keanu Reeves, great. Trying to think. I think there's a movie on here that I don't. So Point Break is one that, because I think that's the one where he's like, I am a CIA agent or FBI agent. I think I watched it once and thought it was okay, but I don't know. It wasn't like where I really needed it on the shelf. The Lion King, classic. What more can you say? Clear and Present Danger. I've only watched this movie once. This is the sequel to Patriot Games. I like it, but I need to rewatch it just to make sure. Pulp Fiction. Great movie. Still not my favorite Tarantino movie. I'd probably put this one... It's probably second. Yeah. Probably... Well, no. Maybe third. Second or third. Shawshank. So, classic. Most people consider this maybe the greatest movie of all time. My brother was a big fan of this. He had this, and then I finally sat down and watched it because from the cover of this, I was like, I don't know what this is about. Is this just some like dark drama? Because they make it kind of, that cover could mean like maybe it's a supernatural movie. You don't know what's going on there. You watch it. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's a great movie. You need to watch Shawshank Redemption. It's just as good as people say it is, if not better. And I mean, you could make the argument this is the greatest movie of all time. As far as bang for your buck, how good a movie is, this would probably be in my top 10. Maybe it's not top 10 I enjoy, but it's up there. The ending is so good. Leon the Professional. I had some buddies right after high school that recommended this movie to me, and I sat down and watched it with them. And it's great. Jean Reno does a great job in this movie. I wish I would have seen more movies with him in it. But Natalie Portman does a great job as playing like a young little girl that's tagging along with him because their parents, stuff happens to them. But great movie. Page Master. Grew up with this one. You could say maybe this one at this point is like a guilty pleasure, but I don't care. This is a movie I'd want to show my daughter. Just a cool movie, cool concept, taking live action and mixing it with animation. I really don't feel like many people are doing that. I know like Roger Rabbit did it, but this is different because they had like live action that go into like the cartoon world. Dumb and Dumber, one of my favorite comedies of all time. I mean, just great. I did watch the sequel and I didn't like the sequel, but great. I don't know what else to say. Like, if you haven't seen Dumb and Dumber, you're missing out. If I had to do a favorite line, I don't know. That's tough. I don't know. Nice set of Hooters you got there. What? The owls. They're beautiful. Billy Madison. This is a movie I grew up watching, or at least in my teens I watched a lot. It's funny, but it's not as good as the other Adam Sandler movies that I like. I will say, favorite one from this one is where he calls up Steve Buscemi and he's like, "Hey, just want to say like I'm sorry for like like picking on you in high school and stuff like that." He's like, I was a stupid kid. Like, hope you don't like hold anything against me or whatever." He's like, "No, man, it's fine." He's like, "That was high school. It was a long time ago." He's like, "All right, well, hope maybe we could get together sometime, have beers." He's like, "Yeah, I'd like that." And then like as he hangs up, Steve Buscemi uses like lipstick and crosses out his name off like his to kill list, and at the end of the movie, Steve Buscemi comes up and saves his life and kills the bad guy. He's like, "Thank God I called that guy." That's brilliant stuff. Love that. Heavyweights. I grew up watching this movie with my cousins, so like this was just funny. Who's seen more butts? Nobody sees more butts than you, Uncle Tony. I need to rewatch this movie to see if it's any good as an adult, but this was like a guilty pleasure as a kid, so I don't know. We'll see. That fat camp looked like fun to me. I don't know. I mean, Tommy Boy, I've only seen this once. It was like 10 years ago, but I remember thinking this was pretty funny. I haven't watched a ton of Chris Farley movies. I've seen Black Sheep, but that was a long time ago. I need to rewatch this. Crimson Tide. I hadn't seen this until a few years ago. And this was like, it's not as good as Hunt for Red October. They're both submarine movies. But this was one that I was like, damn, this one's really good. And where's this movie been? Because I should have been watching this movie sooner. This movie is so tense. Like, the tension in this movie is so good, but it never feels forced. It feels realistic. I think it was based off a real event that happened. Die Hard with a Vengeance. I've mentioned this movie before. This is up there with me with the original Die Hard. Simon Says, love it. Sam Jackson's great as a... He's not really a sidekick. He offers things to Bruce Willis's character, that John McClane, that basically like we haven't had anybody in the previous Die Hard movies do. He's like smart, but he's not like unrealistically smart where he's like, "Oh my gosh, I answer all your questions, you idiots." Like, they balance each other out. There's stuff that Bruce Willis knows in this movie that Sam Jackson doesn't, and vice versa. And they have a good, realistic working relationship with each other. I don't know. Jeremy Irons is the villain. Great. Love the plot of that movie too. Braveheart. This movie's good and it's epic, and Mel Gibson directed it, which is like another nod to him. But it's not one of my favorite Mel Gibson movies just because of probably how long it is. And but I do need to rewatch this. I watched this, I don't know, within the last 2 years, and I liked it. But I think I was getting to the point where I was falling asleep because it's a pretty long movie. It's about 3 hours long. Apollo 13. I watched this in science class, I believe, for the first time in high school. Great movie. I do need to rewatch it, but I remember it well enough. But yeah, great movie. Probably, it might be my favorite like astronaut like / space movie. I mean, it's probably between that or Interstellar, but we'll see. And I think Interstellar does more bold things, but I think overall I'd probably rather sit down and watch Apollo 13. Waterworld, I'll be honest, this is a guilty pleasure, and mainly because Kevin Costner's cool, and the idea of this movie is why I like it, because it takes you to a world where you're like, oh yeah, everything's underwater. But this movie, I'll be honest, like this movie could have been so much better, but I'll still probably keep it just because, like I said, it might be nice occasionally to go back to this. Plus, Kevin Costner does a okay job. Usual Suspects. I mean, I like this movie, but not as much as a lot of other people. I'm mainly having this movie for the ending. I'll be honest. Seven. Great movie. Great atmospheric movie. I had this movie on like about a month ago. I didn't finish it, but I've seen this movie quite a few times. I would say probably like 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. I watched this for the first time when I was in high school. My buddy recommended this to me. We watched it together. It's freaky, but it's good. Like, it's really good. And the new Batman that came out with Robert Pattinson was heavily inspired by this. Many people have said that, but it really was. It's that David Fincher style of creepiness and cool detective stuff. So Seven's great. I think that's the first Brad Pitt movie that I own, I believe. Goldeneye, here you go. So this would be my favorite Bond movie. I'm not saying it's the greatest Bond movie, but it is my favorite because I grew up playing the game. I was 5 years old when I got the game, and Goldeneye, it was on TV. I would watch it, loved it. Alec Trevelyan, Sean Bean is my favorite Bond villain. Just great. For England, James? No, for me. Well, another line there is where he's like, trust can be misplaced. He's like, my parents trusted the British government. It's like, look where that got him. Toy Story, I grew up watching this one as well. Toy Story is a classic. The great thing about the Toy Story movies is they're not just, oh, I remember that when I was a kid, and they're really great. Similar to like Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin, those movies still hold up. But yeah, what Disney used to do so well is they would make kid content that an adult could watch too and enjoy just as much. I mean, I don't know if they still do that as much. It doesn't seem like they do. Casino, I watched this like 10 years ago. I do need to rewatch it. I remember really liking it. I don't like it as much as Goodfellas, but I do need to rewatch it. Plus, I've worked at casinos before. I've been kind of in the casino industry for a bit. So, and I like gambling. It's one of my vices that I keep it under control. But if I had the money, I would love to be constantly playing at a casino, playing blackjack. Okay, Jumanji, classic. I haven't seen the new versions. I've heard they're actually pretty good, but for me, I grew up watching the original, and I'm kind of just okay with that. If I came across the new ones, I'd give them a shot, but I just can't imagine they'd be as good as Robin Williams in this Jumanji. The special effects aren't the greatest, but this movie's still so cool. I remember watching the TV show. Most of you won't know what that is, but there was a TV show in the late 90s that came out for Jumanji. It's pretty good, I thought, at the time. Heat. This is a movie I hadn't seen up until a couple years ago. Great movie. Absolutely great. Lives up to all the hype it gets. It's a heist movie, but it's really cool. Might be, I'm not going to lie, it might be my favorite Robert De Niro performance. Just, I don't know, I love his character in that. 12 Monkeys. This is a movie that I've had for a while, and then I finally sat down and watched a couple years ago because people were hyping this movie up, and I finally sat down and watched it. I was like, it's actually really good, really cool plot. Brad Pitt's really weird in this movie. I mean, I almost forget that he's in this movie, but it's mainly Bruce Willis and this other girl, Madeline Stowe. I don't remember her being in anything else, but she actually does a really great job in this movie. But Bruce Willis, he kind of carries this movie. He kind of has to, but I do need to rewatch this again because I've only really seen it once, but it was good. Okay, we're getting down to the last few of this one. Happy Gilmore, grew up watching this one. Love Happy Gilmore. Trying to reach the 9-iron from here, shooter, or whatever, the green from here. Happy Gilmore's great comedy. And then Executive Decision, this is more like a guilty pleasure. If you've never seen this, it's this was a year before Air Force One came out, but basically there's a plane that a guy has gone onto, and he's got a bomb, and basically he could activate it from his laptop. And so Kurt Russell's on there, and he has to help like deactivate it and find the guy that's doing it and all that kind of stuff. Steven Seagal's randomly in this movie, if I remember correctly. Let me make sure that. Pretty sure he is. Yeah, Steven Seagal's randomly in it. This might be the only Steven Seagal movie that I own. I watched Under Siege, and I didn't like it as much as everyone said. Probably because Steven Seagal was carrying it, but I really didn't like the movie. I thought it was okay. Okay, so that's it for those piles. All right, next. So right now we're in the mid-90s, if you're wondering where we're at year-wise. We got Mission Impossible, the first one. I love this one, and honestly, people kind of forget about the first one, but the first one, honestly, just as good as a lot of the other ones. The Rock, I need to rewatch this because I watched it when I was a kid, and then I watched it once like a couple years back. I need to rewatch it, but the villain, obviously Nick Cage and Sean Connery's, their compatibility, chemistry on the screen is really good, but Ed Harris as the bad guy, I think is what sealed the deal for me, where I was like, I really like that. So I hate combo packs, and I don't own, I think this might be the only one I own. I'm kind of forced to. I looked for the Hunchback of Notre Dame Blu Ray, and the only one I could find was like the 2 movie collection. I hate these. But the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the original, the music's so great, the visuals are so great, and I don't know, the story's pretty cool. I mean, in that setting is pretty cool. The villain's cool. Good music. I don't know. I liked it. I remember growing up watching it. That's out of the mid-90s Disney movies, that's probably the one I watched the least. Although a girl that I was seeing brought up to my attention recently, Pocahontas. I haven't seen Pocahontas in forever. I need to rewatch that and see if it's any good, because I watched it like once as a kid. Independence Day. This is like a guilty pleasure. I need to rewatch this one. I like it, but Independence Day isn't like, it's not one of my go-tos. Space Jam. This is what, like as a kid, this is what got you into like kind of sports and like Michael Jordan, the NBA and all that kind of stuff. Space Jam. Lola Bunny. Yeah. Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. I love the Austin Powers movies. I could watch any one of them. They're all funny to me. Lost World, Jurassic Park. Probably not a popular opinion, but I like the Lost World just as much as I like the original Jurassic Park. I'm not saying it's better, because the original Jurassic Park is probably slightly better, but I just like it. I don't know. I don't have the flaws with this movie that everyone else does. I mean, maybe my only flaw is that Dr. Grant's not in it. Hercules, the music's good in this. I love the animation style and I love the plot. And as a kid, this was one of my favorites just because I love like the Titans and all that kind of stuff. Hades was cool. Men in Black still holds up. Great movie. Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones' chemistry and banter back and forth with each other is just great. The chemistry in this movie was honestly never duplicated. Like, I know I didn't see the new International Men in Black, the one that like had Chris Hemsworth in it or whatever. Just unless it's these two, we really don't care. Just don't. I mean, Air Force One, I wouldn't even call this a guilty pleasure. This is just one of my favorite movies. I grew up watching this one. Love this one. One of my favorite Harrison Ford performances. Just love it. Love the plot. Gary Oldman's great in it. The Game, a really freaky movie that I hadn't seen up until a little under 10 years ago. Really, really creepy movie, really weird. But yeah, it's definitely worth owning just because of how weird it is. LA Confidential, I need to rewatch this again. I think I've only watched it once, but I remember being like, yeah, that lives up to what people said about it. It is really good. Kevin Spacey's in it. Look, here's what I'll say about Kevin Spacey. I don't care. Like, I'm not saying I don't care about what he did. Obviously, if he was like raping children or whatever, that's a bad thing. And if he goes to prison, so be it. I don't even know what he's doing right now. I don't know what's going on with this legal situation. But what I'm saying is, I don't ever let someone's legal situation, I don't care in comparison to what their work is. Like, I don't care. Like, I know with sports, people are like, oh, how could you have that person's jersey? I'm like, because that's separate from I don't care. Music, whatever it is, I don't care. I don't try to retroactively be like, oh, I never liked that in the first place, or I can't stomach this now. I don't care. Kevin Spacey was a great actor. His acts as a pervert doesn't take away from his acting performances in the movie, so I don't care about that stuff. The LA Confidential, really good. Starship Troopers, this is a guilty pleasure. It's not some great movie, but I mean, I grew up watching it. There was a cartoon back in the day that I used to watch in like early mornings, weekday mornings, so Starship Troopers, like that. But I acknowledge it's not that good. Anastasia is a movie people forget about, and this wasn't Disney. This was, I think it was 20th Century Fox. Underrated. Pretty good. The music's actually pretty good in it, and yeah, the story behind it's pretty good. I've actually watched this one not too long ago. It was good. I think I watched it with a girl, I think. Titanic. This is actually the one I just watched with a girl that I had over. It's great. The visuals are great, all that kind of stuff. But to be honest, I mean, I am a guy, so like I can only stomach so much of just like the wild adventure romance where she goes for the bad boy or whatever. I'm like, realistically, Rose would have a fling with Jack, but she's not staying with him because he's got nothing to his name, and after a while, you still got to provide for your girl. And if you're just like, yesterday morning I woke up broke and on the streets, she's not going to be with him, and that's why she let him die. That's why she could have pulled him up, and she was like, nope, you're not in my future, so she let him die. It's one of the most messed up things in a movie that no one talks about. Tomorrow Never Dies. I didn't watch this movie. Like, even though I was a Pierce Brosnan Bond fan, I think because I never played the Tomorrow Never Dies game because I remember it wasn't very good or wasn't very popular. So basically, I didn't grow up watching this one. I watched this like, I don't know, a couple years ago. I like, is it John Price? I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Give me 1 second. Yeah, Jonathan Pryce. I really like him as a Bond villain, I do. But this movie, it's not as good. To me, it's not as good as GoldenEye or some of the other Brosnan movies, to be honest. This is my least favorite Brosnan Bond movie. That being said, I still think he does a pretty good job in it. And it's kind of refreshing for me because as a guy that loves Pierce Brosnan Bond, Tomorrow Never Dies, I feel like every time I'm going to watch it, it's going to feel new to me because I've only seen it, I've only seen it really once. Big Lebowski. So the cool thing that I have a story with this movie is that me and my dad have a bond of this movie because he loves this movie and I love this movie. So we can always go and watch this movie and just bond over it. Because the lines are classic of this movie where he's like, they were Nazis, Walter? He's like, well, come on, Donnie. They were threatening castration. We're going to split hairs here? Am I wrong? Godzilla. So I grew up with the 98 Godzilla, and this is like a guilty pleasure for me because I acknowledge it's not the greatest, but I still think it's pretty good, and most people, they hate on it. The only thing I don't like is Godzilla ended up being the bad guy, which is something they corrected in the later Godzillas that I really like. Okay, so this case got destroyed by a family member on accident. It was a little kid that, I wasn't furious, but I was a little like, well, eventually I'm going to have to replace that case. But anyway, if you can see it, I got Mulan. The original Mulan is really good. I haven't seen the newer one. I heard it's not very good. But Mulan is actually one of my favorites just because I like the setting, I like the music, and I like the story behind it. Because Mulan's not some, let me be the hero. She's a reluctant hero, but she does it out of the love for her father. So, pretty cool. Armageddon, this is a guilty pleasure. I saw this movie in theaters, and once again, I don't think it's as bad as the critics said it is. That being said, it's not a great movie. It's besides The Rock, I think it's The Rock and then this movie are the Michael Bay movies, the first two that I own. I don't know, it's good. The music's good. The Aerosmith soundtrack's pretty good. Plus, the scene that I always remember kind of made me choke up is when they hand Billy Bob Thornton, Bruce Willis's insignia, like his spaceship patch or whatever, and they're like, here you go, because you always wanted to go in space. Here you go at the end of the movie. It's great. Small Soldiers. I love this movie. I love this movie as a kid, and then I went back and rewatched it within the last 5-10 years, and I was like, this still holds up. It's pretty damn good. I like it. So it's pretty dark, actually, because I remember they did sell that movie for kids. They wanted kids to go see it because it's like toys, and it's like, it was PG-13, borderline R is what it should have been. Saving Private Ryan, great movie. This is probably my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. It's just great. I don't know, that or Indiana Jones. Can't really argue with it, but Saving Private Ryan's great. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. So I haven't seen this movie in quite a long time, like over 10 years, but between this and Snatch, they're both great, but I remember liking this one slightly more, but I need to rewatch it. Rounders. I like Rounders. I saw this one not too long ago, but I originally saw it like 10 years ago. Rounders is great. I love card game movies, or not card game movies, but poker movies or blackjack movies. I love those. So gambling movies, I should say. Rush Hour, the epitome of an action comedy. It's just perfect. And the chemistry between these two is just amazing. Let's see how we're doing. I'm doing okay on my battery. Okay. What am I at? 51%. Let's keep going. Ronin, this is a movie I didn't watch for the first time until a couple years ago. Pretty underrated. It's like an assassin movie with De Niro in it. Pretty good. Enemy of the State. This is a movie I'd watched when I was really young, and then I finally rewatched it not too long ago. It's pretty good. I still need to rewatch it again. I don't have many Gene Hackman movies, actually. I think it's... What do I have? I have... I just had it. Under Siege... Not Under Siege. Crimson Tide... and The Firm, and then this. And I think that's the only Gene Hackman movies I own. So I need to get more, obviously. I heard The French Connection is good. I need to rewatch that. Or watch it, I should say. Prince of Egypt. Great movie. Like, one of my favorite animation movies. I believe this is Spielberg. I believe. Isn't it? This is bothering me. No, I guess it's not Spielberg. I think he worked on it. But, anyway. Prince of Egypt's a great movie. The soundtrack's great. What they did great in this movie is you can be a non-religious person and watch this and enjoy it, but it doesn't shy away from the religion. Like, it doesn't go, let's kidify the history. They're like, no, they don't show you, people getting murdered or something like that necessarily, but they don't shy away from, what the story of Moses is. So that's what I think is really great about that one. Office Space, I watched this for the first time, 10 years ago, and then I just rewatched it, within the last couple months. It's a great movie. When I say great, it's a pretty good comedy. I remember laughing quite a lot. And I love the main guy, his stance on life is just great. The Matrix, classic. I don't really know what I need to say about that. The Mummy, perfect action adventure movie. Perfect. You want a good time at the movies? The Mummy. Perfect. Grew up watching it, love it. Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. Watched this movie in the theaters. I don't care what anyone says. The prequels, I love them. Are they as good as the original trilogy? No, but they're a hell of a lot better than the new sequel trilogy we got. Because these movies actually had story. Is the acting always the best? No, but the story's great. George Lucas knew what he was doing. He just probably needed someone else to like help him a little bit. But Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Like I said, all the Austin Powers movies are funny to me. I'd still be down if they made a fourth one, honestly. Big Daddy, probably my favorite Adam Sandler comedy. This one's the funniest one to me, probably. Or he's pissing on the sidewalk and some ladies are watching him and the kid, and he's like, "What's your name?" He'll write it on the wall. Mind your business. Okay. Oh, we got one more for this one. What do we got? Deep Blue Sea. This is a guilty pleasure. I haven't seen this movie in quite a long time, but I just remember Sam Jackson gets eaten by a shark, and then it's actually kind of a cool concept. These like super science sharks that basically are smart, and they these people at like a research facility have to like survive against it. It's not a bad, it's just a movie you can pop in, kind of turn your brain off, and just sit back and enjoy. So not too bad. Okay, so we're pretty much almost done with the 90s. Like I said, hopefully my camera lasts. I don't remember how long I can make a video for, but we'll see. What am I at? Over an hour. I don't know. You know what? This will probably be a good opportunity. I'll just break this up into 2 videos. So this is part 1, and then I'll upload part 2. All right.